And so we got these two views of history, and I'm going to show you something that I've never seen anybody do in 20 years. This is where you might want to take out a pen. Usually I say put them down. But I'm going to give you some verses that get you from Adam to Jesus and to now, and with 6,000 years. Because when you go into answers in Genesis and you try to figure out how old is the earth, this is what they say. Adam to Abraham, we get about 2,000 years. You know, that's what the genealogies. That's really simple. I can do that. But how do you get to Jesus from there? And then they just say, most scholars would agree that Abraham lived about 2000 BC. That's a big jump, 2,000 years. And I was never satisfied with that. And then you go into ICR and try and figure it out. How old is the earth according to the Bible? It says, to calculate the date, one must first employ the genealogical data given in Genesis, 1st and 2nd Chronicles, the Gospels, and elsewhere. Information gleaned from Judges, 1st and 2nd Kings, Daniel, Acts, and other books must be included as well. Obviously, the job is difficult. Yeah, I guess it would be difficult if you had to do all that, but in 5 minutes you're going to have a framework that's going to be a lot simpler than what he said. You go into Genesis 5, and it's got the genealogies. You know, Adam lived 130 years and begat a son and called him Seth. So you take 130. And then you add it, Seth lived 105 and begat Enos. So 130 plus 105. And then Enos lived 90 years and begat Canaan. And then you add 90 to that. I did it on a spreadsheet. But then you get down to Abram, really easy. And then you got to figure out the last couple of ones. So then another verse, and you do that in Genesis 5 and 11. Those where the two genealogies are. And then you had to figure out when Abraham was, when Isaac was born. So this is Genesis 21:5. Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born. Okay, so how old was Isaac when Jacob was born? That was in Genesis 25:26. And that says that Isaac was 70 years old, okay, when Jacob was born. So that's 60. Okay, and so how old was Jacob when his sons were born? It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all because he goes into Egypt when he's 130. Okay, so, and Jacob said unto Pharaoh, the days of the years of my pilgrimage are 130 years. Few and evil have the days of the years of my life been, and have not attained unto the days of the years of the life of my fathers and the days of their pilgrimage. So what's he telling Pharaoh? It's like, I'm 130, but that's nothing compared to my forefathers. That's what he's telling them. So when you graph this out, you know, that big blue line, that's the flood. But what's never occurred to me in 20 years is Shem outlived Abraham. How in the world did he do that? Shem outlived Abraham, who was his great-great-great-great-great-great-grandson. And I think it has to do with he was developed in the perfect environment. When he was in his mother's womb, there was more oxygen. It was the perfect environment. He got everything he needed to live a long life. But then after the flood, it's not the perfect environment. You know, we used to have 30-some% oxygen according to amber bubbles, and now we got 20% or 21%. So it's a different environment. So I think that's why he lived longer. And there is a, you know, I've covered this on my talks. It's like the creation week or the first 6 days. That's on my YouTube channel. If you can't find it, just put a Facebook message and I'll get it to you. And then, okay, so this is my spreadsheet. Okay, you got all those years. You get down to Jacob. He was 130. He goes into Egypt. And that's about 2,238 years after Adam. Okay, 2238. So how long were they in Egypt? Now write down, this is Exodus 12:40. It says that he was in Egypt for 430 years. Okay, the sojournings of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. So you take 2238 plus 430, you get 2668. Well, what happened after the Exodus? Once they left, this is a real key verse. And this is the one that my wife pointed out to me. And it said, it came to pass in the 480th year after the children of Israel were come out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month of Ziph, which is the 2nd month, that he began to build the house of the Lord. So 480 years after they left Egypt, they began to build the house of the Lord, and that was in the 4th year of Solomon's reign. Okay? And so you got 480 years after that. So now it brings us to the kings. So now we can add up the years of the kings in Judah. And so we can do that, how long they ruled. And this is going to be 1 Kings 6:1 to all the way through 2 Kings 25:30, where you can see how long they reigned. And there was a couple of them that only reigned 3 months, so I didn't put them in there till the very end, and I called it 1 year. And they ruled for 430 years, roughly. But that's not important. What's important is when Nebuchadnezzar came on the scene. And Nebuchadnezzar, he came on the scene in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, was the 1st year of Nebuchadnezzar. That's a key verse. And I asked my wife, where's that? And without batting an eye, she said, Jeremiah 25:1. You know, I was searching around trying to find where that was. She said, Jeremiah 25:1. So I go there, it's like, there it is. Jeremiah 25:1. The word that came to Jeremiah concerning all the people of Judah in the 4th year of Jehoiakim, the son of Josiah, the king of Judah, that was the 1st year of Nebuchadnezzar. That's a key verse, because that ties a Bible character with in the secular timeline. And she knew it on the back of her head, or just at the top of her head, because she cross-referenced a Bible for every one of her siblings last year, and her parents. So not only did she read it, and she cross-referenced. So she's read the Bible probably 10, 12 times since the last year. And so she knows it inside and out. And so, Jeremiah 25:1. You know, it's just, so she's like the researcher. You know, she's the microscope. I'm like the megaphone. It's like, hey, look at what's this is happening. Then she looked up in the Southwest Handbook, page 82, that 605 to 562. So you got Nebuchadnezzar from 605 BC, and that ties it up to Jesus. And then we looked on Britannica.com, and it said that he started to reign at 605 to 561 BCE. Anybody know what BCE stands for? Before Common Era. Yeah, they changed BCE to BCE, so in a couple of generations, our kids aren't going to know what BC stands for. So it's very important that we let them know what the truth is. And so there's the timeline. So you just add all that together, and we'll do that right at the end. These are the key verses, or the key numbers. You know, we got Genesis 1. It's 238 years Jacob enters Egypt. That's Genesis 5:11, 21:5, 21:6, 26, and 47:9. 430 years in Egypt. That was Exodus 12, 40, and 41. And then 480 years until the start of the building of the temple. That's 1 Kings 6:1. And then 412 years of the kings until Nebuchadnezzar. And the key verse there is that starts in 1 Kings 6:1 to 2 Kings, all the way through. And then that key is Jeremiah 25:1. And then you got Nebuchadnezzar there. And then you jump to the secular timeline, which is 605 BC. And you crunch all those numbers, and you get roughly 6,189 years after creation. And I'm not a Bible scholar, so I could be wrong. But this is a pretty good framework to go with, I think. And it's a little bit different than what ICR got. And so I did all this number crunching, and then I jumped into, not ICR, it would have been creation.com. They did pretty much the same thing we did. The Bible's history giving us the answer to the age of the earth. And they did pretty much the same thing. Theirs is on the left, mine is on the right. We have different numbers at the bottom. They got 2298, I got 2238. And that's because we have different ages for Terah when Abram was born. And I'm not sure why that is. I'm not sure where they got 130, but they're probably right. I just threw it together. So it's a pretty good timeline. And then, but they don't go to Nebuchadnezzar. They go to the exile when Israel went into exile. They think that was 586 BC. So they're going to an event. I'm going to a person, and so their timeline is 6150 plus or minus 50 years, and that was 11 years ago. So it might be 6161 by now. But that's right. It's in the ballpark. So now you've got what the Bible says about 6,000 years. And again, I've been watching this for 20 years, and I've never seen anybody do that. So that's worth the price of admission right there.